Hello, my name is Mike Massey, and you are listening to the commentary track on the main program for the Flintridge and Portola Valley Railway. Just a couple of words about how I met Peter, Ron, and Bill. I had shot a video in 2007 of the narrow gauge meet at the Bitter Creek Western, and Peter was in it. He had brought his 268, which is very unfinished at that point, and I didn't know who he was. And I went on to make this great video, which went on to have 35,000 YouTube hits as of this evening. And he found it later and liked it a lot. And at the same time, I was looking for tracks in the South San Francisco Bay Area where I could test out a engine that I was building, an Allen Models Chloe, which we finally did about a month ago, speaking now in August of 2010. And we did the first steam trial at Peter's track. But anyway, we found each other through email, and I thought, wow, this is great. There's some really nice tracks in the South Bay. They're all private and kind of hard to find. But once I discovered it, I went up there and we all said hello, and I took the tour, and we immediately talked about me coming back and doing a video, and it happened. So that's all good. Now, in that previous shot there of Peter's father, Francis Mosley, you'll notice a yellow water tower. Remember that visual because you're going to see it again later, and it's, if you have an eagle eye, you can spot it.
We were looking for a new house.
Peter and Ron are talking about how they accidentally found each other, which I think is great. They were neighbors before they knew that they were each interested in live steam, and then they met, and all of a sudden, as Ron says, he finds out that Peter's building this backyard railroad. And there's Peter with his 1-inch engine built by his father, Francis Mosley. And on this DVD, there's another clip that talks, where Peter talks about Francis and all of the amazing accomplishments that he's done, and including inventing the Servo Products power feed and starting that company. So a lot of really interesting stuff. There's that water tower again. See, Francis Mosley's water tower. So it's actually in two different shots in the video.
2.5-inch to the foot scale project to build a locomotive that he and Stan Marshall had started.
So here's a picture of Bill Baller and Stan Marshall. Stan Marshall was building the fourth engine in this project, and sadly, Stan Marshall basically got old and just could no longer handle having a shop and building the engine, etc. So he ended up selling the engine. And for those of you who are buying this, who bought this video from the magazine, you'll know that there's a Livestream magazine cover article in the September-October 2010 issue, and it talks about the whole story. And I kind of put this thing at the end saying, you know, if you want to do something, don't wait, do it now. And that's a really good example of, you know, don't wait till you get too old. Just set out to accomplish your goals, and you can do some pretty amazing stuff, like these guys have done here.
So we went back and said, well, we'll redo this, redo that, and redo the other thing.
Peter Mosley had a great collection of builders' photos in a couple of albums, and I was able to pull from those and use them here. And here's Bill Baller, and Bill's looking quite dirty in this shot, and everybody else looks clean, and that's because we shot these at separate times. I had shot Peter and Ron first while Bill was trying to get the 268 or the 268 Bumblebee working, and then after Bill had got it running, then he stopped and I interviewed him, and it turned out that there was a great a visual dissonance. You know, here he is sitting next to Ron. He's replaced Peter now, and he's all dirty and Ron's clean. And in hindsight, I probably would have interviewed all three of them all at once. You know, schedule be damned, but it's just the way it turned out. Now on the table there, you see a magazine, and that's a copy of Railfan and Railroad, and on the cover is a photograph that Steve Kreis and I did at the Nevada Northern Railroad. That's a really nice, I think that's the May 2009 issue of Railfan and Railroad. Here's a picture of the real 268 sitting in a park, and 268 when it was the Bumblebee. And there's all kinds of differences between the two, and Peter did the 1930s era 268, and Bill, of course, did the Bumblebee. And one example was the tender had been shortened at some point and a platform added onto the end, and but Bill didn't realize that until later, and then Ron, being the expert, pointed it out, and he said, "Oh, crud." And so that was an excuse to go out and buy a plasma cutter, and he cut the tender shell right in half and took a section out of it and put it back together, and you can't tell. It's pretty amazing. This lift is really nice because you can move it left to right as well as up and down. So it's something that I found is lacking in just regular turntable lifts made out of old automotive hydraulic lifts. Here's Ron building that beautiful replica of the bridge using scale lumber. The other trestle, the curved trestle right there, that's a trestle that uses 1 foot timber in real life, and in their scale layout, it's actually 2.5 inch timber, custom cut. So that's to give you an idea of some of the lengths that they went through to make their railroad as scale as possible. You'll notice in the main video, there's not a whole lot of scenes of the black 268 running, and that's because we just never got around to shooting much with it. So later on, we made up for it by shooting some passenger footage with that engine. And until then, the only time you see 268 running is in this shot where the 268 is passing by the 278 in the yard. There it is, right there. But we did make up for that in the end. And here's also a rare shot of Ron running his 278 as well. And then we're back to Bill.
A typical day at the track begins.
This video was shot over a period of about 2.5 weekends. This was the first weekend, and in addition to all of this footage where we're showing a typical day on the railroad, it was also the very first steam up of the Bumblebee, and it actually had problems and didn't run that day. And what you see in the video is kind of a mixture of the 268 scenes from this, and then later on a second weekend when the Bumblebee was working really well. And what had happened was a couple of silver solder joints of unknown that used silver solder of an unknown origin failed, and it blew steam everywhere. But nothing bad happened. Got it all under control. But he went off and fixed that, and then we came back for a second weekend and ran the Bumblebee, and then it turned out that the run of the Bumblebee was the only sequence that we got that had the same engineer wearing the same clothes doing the entire circuit, with basically the same train. And so that ended up being the tour of the track, which comprises a bulk of the middle of the video. We're now showing you the loading sequence, and this is more or less for people who are kind of new to live steam and want to see how the whole thing works, how you move things around, put them in cars, take them out of cars, shunt engines that are cold. And of course, this is all being done by the Role Models #1 diesel switcher based on the GE 50-tonner that ran at the SP narrow gauge up in the Owens Valley. And it was ordered brand new from GE by the Southern Pacific, and later was sold to a copper mining company in Mexico and was standard gauged. So it actually spent the end of its life as a standard gauge locomotive. But again, Ron had the first of those built from RMI and Role Models, and Role Models later on went and built a bunch more of them and sold them to other people. I actually like the Bumblebee for visuals because it's very bright and you can see it. It's not a black hole, which a lot of black engines in very busy environments with a lot of trees, they tend to just disappear. So the Bumblebee actually ended up being really great as a demo locomotive. The 268 was painted in the Bumblebee scheme for the 1949 Chicago World's Fair, and actually kept that way in one scheme or another until the end of its life on the Denver and Rio Grande. The 268 survives today at an outdoor railroad museum in Gunnison, Colorado. If you look on the DVD, there's a extra half an hour of footage where I go through a complete unadulterated steam up of the 268 and a run and a blowdown without any music or voice or anything. So if you like that and you're interested in that, do check out that, and you'll see a lot more clips that did not make it into the final video. You'll notice in this shot there's a lot of leaves and things falling down through the shot, and that's from that very exuberant safety valve kind of wiggling loose leaves that were already getting ready to fall off and just needed a little bit of persuasion. But if you go to any forest railroad, you'll see that a lot. You'll see stack exhaust and things helping the leaves to shed themselves.
Once under steam, it is time to head out to the yard to make up a train.
And this is obviously the second weekend that we had shot, and I had Bill wear the exact same thing, so it matched. It's just like the movies. If you go to do a pickup shot the next day, boom, there it is. Everybody's wearing the same thing, except I don't have they have a person when you make a film and you have a budget, you have a person that does continuity. That's all they do. They look for things and make sure they're wearing the exact same wardrobe, and the teacups are in the same place on the set, and I didn't have that. So there's actually one small flaw with the consist here. And also, this is interesting. The first time this was shot, this is a pickup shot that was done later, that one cut, because Peter was wearing a cast in the first shot from he had hurt his arm. And so we actually reshot that and cut it in with the other footage, and it worked out really well. Now watch this scene where we're leaving, and you'll see this Gramps tank car. Remember that. And when we come back to it later, that car will have changed into something else. Now here's a view of the layout in general. And you can see it goes around three houses. This is an old shot with the tennis court is still visible in the upper right middle.
The impressive curved trestle at the west end of track.
Here's this wonderful curved trestle that I seem to obsess over a lot in the video. There's I think there's 2 or 3 different shots of it repeated, of him coming over it, just because it's such a beautiful vista, and you rarely see something this nice in a backyard railroad. This one happens to be up on a hill, so everything is bridges, trestles, fills, cuts, you name it. A very little actual flat land, but what they've done is they've really actually made the railroad fairly flat. See, now it's a Kanoko car, which is actually more appropriate for what we're looking at. So the Gramps tank car transformed itself into a Kanoko car. Now this is indeed a replica of the Hermosa trestle in Durango, which you can still ride over on the Durango and Silverton Tourist Railroad, one of the most scenic tourist railroads in the United States.
Took one section out of it.
It's built like the prototype.
Now here's an interesting piece of footage. I shot a lot of video of going down the track, looking forward or looking back at an engine, sometimes with a flat car tied onto the front of the engine, or a flat car on a train in front of the engine trying to pace each other and nearly colliding a couple times, but it all worked out. That was probably the most fun thing to shoot, but I didn't use a whole lot of that footage because it's kind of a gimmick and you don't want to use too much of it. So you just got to be careful. Now note in this scene, if you can look at the fill bracing, you'll see a sprinkler sticking out of it, and they actually have a whole sprinkler system that they can turn on during the hot season to prevent the coal embers from burning. Now there's the shot with the water tower from Francis Mosley's 1-inch layout from back in Flintridge, California. And this scenic vista is really as beautiful as it looks. It's just magnificent, and it's so nice to take a ride around a line and see so much variety in the places that you go and the things that you do. There's very few straightaways on the track, and everywhere you go is a different place. It's like, here you're wide open in a vista, and here you're on the back of somebody's deck, and the next thing you know, you're cramming in behind their house and going between a tree. it's just a lot of fun. And the video talks about the tightness of this space. Now look at the drain spout, and you notice that there's some dents in it where Bill has already hit it before. Not while we were shooting, but just just a couple times before. Feet were sticking out, or elbows or arms or whatever, and fortunately it's really thin aluminum. So this is a great shot of how that deck was built, and it looks like a normal deck from the top, but it's actually super reinforced with curved wood that you would see on the side of a ship. And so it really is sturdy. It's just fantastic. And there's the turntable where they used to do a return loop to go back to the other end of the railroad before he had completed the curve up to the driveway bridge. And that, when I'd first come over, that was all that was finished. The railroad did end here, and it took a while. It took about another year before the railroad came around the driveway bridge and completed that second dogbone loop. And so we basically agreed when I first came up there and met them that we would wait until the railroad was completed, and at that point it would be a perfect time in which to come and do this video to show how it was made and all the features of the railroad. And here's that amazing driveway bridge, which I wish that Peter had pointed out that, well, you can see it right there in the video, that the bridge is actually curved. In addition to all this fiddling, getting these little, essentially, flat cars that roll on top of each other and making this all fit and making the track line up and making this thing in the middle of the driveway work, that it's all curved. And so all that wood on those little flat car bridge pieces is curved, and it's just a phenomenal amount of work. It doesn't look like it. It looks like, oh yeah, you could slap that together in a couple weekends. Well, no, it took a lot of thinking about, a lot of design work to support the weight of a 1,000-pound locomotive and a train loaded down with people, and have it be removable at the end of the day. And of course, every winter the whole thing shifts around a little bit, and you have to, in the spring, you have to kind of adjust it to prevent gaps from appearing. So and eventually the pavement's going to wear out, and on and on. But all in all, it's a terrific solution to, because there's no other way to do it. You can't make the road go high enough or low enough and return to its point of origin without making it incredibly steep and crazy for the cars. So, or building the railroad so high you can't get up to that elevation, or dig a tunnel down without doing a lot of excavation. So it really is the only solution for bridging that driveway. So here's some more great footage of now this was pacing from a different train, and Peter's driving on a diesel, and I'm holding a camera sitting on a flat car looking back, and trying to pace a steam locomotive and a diesel is very difficult, because the diesel reacts very quickly and the steam locomotive reacts very slowly. And so the diesel will just hammer up the curves hammer up the grades in the curves without feeling anything, and it will maintain a constant speed, whereas a steam locomotive will slow down and speed up, and you really got to keep a handle on it. So that's why sometimes we got very close to each other, but we never touched. We never hit each other. So it worked out in the end. And here's this magnificent new, nice shallow curve with the double track. This is where I shot that intro picture of the wheels turning around under the title. That was the only long piece of double track on the whole layout. There's a water bottle that ended up in that shot too, so we're sponsored by whatever brand that spring water is.
The journey returns you to the main yards and an authentic functioning replica of the Jack's Cabin water tank. The tank was started by Ken Johnson and completed by Peter and Ron. The C-16s aren't the...
Now also on the DVD you will of course find a whole sequence with the 464 with all the firing up we didn't show here, and a couple more clips of it running, and it really is exactly as it says. It's the rigid wheelbase of this locomotive is too big for the curves. There's some pretty sharp curves at the ends of the layout and a few in the middle, but mostly it's the curve going up to Ron's a second house all the way at the trestle end of the layout that comes just after you depart this yard. You go up this curve in the approach to the big trestle, and that's one of the curves that has a lot of trouble. But here, this is one of my favorite shots. But here, there's no trouble. Just going along the straights, along the open areas. You can look at the huge connecting rod between all the wheels and just see, how much of a rigid wheelbase that engine has. Is giant. The only thing bigger than it, or that was in mainstream use, was there's a K28 and a K36, and there are a couple of K36 models out there, and they're just massive. They're just huge. This wreck train Peter built himself, by the way. The locomotive, like they said, Rich Ulen of Ulen Locomotives Works built this engine along with a Westside number 15 Shay, both built for Ron, and the Shay later went on to Bill, and that's covered in another segment on the DVD, another featurette. This, of course, is the opening shot from the video. It's one of the very few shots that I used twice in the main video. It was just so nice that I thought, this is great. Yeah, this is kind of an end of day shot, looking out over the valley, and just another beautiful glancing light picture. There were a lot of changes to the end of this video at the end here, with all the miscellaneous clips of the different cars and things and locomotives. This was originally in the first cut of the video, and I showed it to Peter, Ron, and this is Lila, Ron's wife and a grandkid, and they liked it so much. I thought, well, there's not enough of that. I mean, why do you have the railroad? Why do you do the things you do? And part of it is, for the enjoyment of your grandkids and your kids, to have people come over and ride it. So this shot, along with the other shots of people riding, was added later. We had a third day, on a third weekend, where we had everybody come out. And I said, well, invite all of your best friends and family, and we'll give them rides. And so that's how these shots here came about for the ending credits. Originally, it was just some pictures of the 278 just running around the track, that were leftover shots. But we thought, well, let's break this up. Let's make more variety, have some fun. And this is probably the best shot here, with everybody looking and pointing and doing different things, waving. Grandma's looking at down at the trestle. So, and the funny thing is, you'll notice as it goes on, there's less and less people. Like in this shot, there's a few less people. And what had happened is people just kind of abandoned as we went on. And so the whole ending sequence was going to be just the people riding, but then I ended up throwing in shots like this, where, there's locomotives running side by side, and then the triple header. And here's a great shot looking at the house on the deck that didn't make its way into the original segment about this part of the railroad, but I thought, oh, this has to work its way in there for perspective. This is another shot that I kind of reused from the beginning. It's a great shot, and it's not the Bumblebee, so it didn't work its way into the middle, but I thought, here's just some fantastic running. Now, I'm sitting on a flat car that's attached to the engine, which is why you never see the very front pilot on the engine. The triple header was kind of a last-minute decision, and I'll part with a dirty little secret. The 278 at the end is dead. It's not running, but it's very hard to tell the difference between two engines in steam and three as far as the chuffs go. Also another dirty secret, this shot was sped up a little bit. They're going a little too slow and it didn't match the others, so I sped it up. If you watch the triple header sequence on the DVD, the separate featurette, you'll see that they're running actually a lot slower, and it's the same shot. Now, to redeem myself, in the triple header bonus feature, there is a sequence where all three engines are under steam at a different track. So check that out. And the ending shot, they ride off into the sunset. And that's the end. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this story about the Flintridge and Portola Valley, and we'll see you next time.